now it's time to go a little deeper, to unpack what GenAI and connected enterprise really mean and how they're reshaping the way we work. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Pragma's Global Delivery Lead, Uma, as well as IBM's Web Methods Americas Lead, Rowan.
Thanks, Wade.
Thank you, sir.
Happy morning. A warm welcome to all of you for the Pragma Universe 2025. We are excited to have you here for a day filled with thought-provoking conversations and learnings. A nice place for a vacation. How many of us offload the responsibility of plan and execution of the vacation for our spouses? Well, the later effect is different. This time, I took the load myself. I wanted to see how this journey is going to be. I reached out to an organization to help me plan and execute this. They put me onto a mobile app. I keyed in information in terms of my preferred destination, my budget, family details, few other nuances. Quite surprising. The interaction started with the app. It kind of gave me up the different options for me to travel there, the flight, the hotel accommodation details. I was able to make my choices, booked in the reservation. The app made it on behalf of me. Quite surprising. Then it continued. It gave me the options of what all activities I can do for my 7-day vacation based on my interests, my family interests. And I was able to nail down the itinerary in short time. Good. I had my itinerary, I had my plan in place. Now the time for execution. Fast forward. The day before the vacation, I got the notification that my travel to the airport was booked and taken care of. I was also informed about my destination options in terms of how am I going to use the local transportation and other nuances. Yes, fast forward 2 days later, we were enjoying the vacation. During the vacation, I had a lot of notifications in terms of based on the place I am there, what are the different restaurants based on my food choices, and also the weather alerts. Now, 2 days into the vacation, the weather alert gave in a notification that there is a change in plan of the weather. What do we do? Well, quite surprising. The app also gave me a revised option in terms of how can I change my plan for the rest of the days based on the weather conditions, weather forecast. So that is how the experience of seamless interaction for me brought in. And I was surprised how this organization was able to give me that pleasing experience and a happy vacation, which was not stressful. Well, they had a connected enterprise. What is a connected enterprise? It's basically bringing in people, process, and technology in an orchestrated way for achieving business goals. Now, every organizations have their own applications internally, the core applications, be it their core banking, be it their SCS, supply chain management, the ERPs of the world. And today with the technology coming in, some of them are legacy, some of them are cloud hosted. They also have an ecosystem of customer engagement channels, be it their web portals, mobile apps. And in order to complete their business, they do have a lot of partners who has to work cohesively along with them. That's what this particular organization had as. So the connected enterprise is about bringing all these different players in the ecosystem and ensuring that they are orchestrated and well connected to bring in the real time, agile, scalable enterprise. Now, with the connected enterprise, what happened? Over time, there is good quantum of data that the organization has built in. Now, the data has been used to develop insights, to understand what is happening in the business. We are at a cusp of time where the technology is moving at a rapid pace. With the cloud computing powers increasing, with the AI coming in, the data now has much more value than it was today. Bringing in the generative AI to an ecosystem of enterprise brings in a lot more value in terms of how the organizations can be more nimble and more proactive in terms of how they can address the customer nuances. And that is where the generative enterprise comes into picture. Now, let's just take a scenario as a large logistics organization. They have an ecosystem of their multiple vehicles, their logistics that needs to be addressed out across the globe. They run into a lot of disruptions. The disruptions can be caused due to various reasons, be it a geopolitical situation, be it a weather change, and also be it the port congestions that can happen due to mechanical failures of their own vessels out there. Now, when such disruptions occur, all the information, all the telematics information are brought into the ecosystem, brought together, understand what is happening out there. Yes. Now, not just the telematics information in terms of understanding their vehicle situations, but also the news feeds, the weather feeds, the internal CRM information about their customers, the SLAs that they have to meet. All the data is being brought together and worked upon by the generative AI. Now, how can they manage the situation? Well, now they can now, based on the future forecast of the weather, they can now reroute their whole logistics into a different alternate routes. Now, taking the alternate routes means they still have to work out in terms of the different logistics at the newer endpoints that they need to arrange out. So, now they have to work with the suppliers or the partners of those newer regions to kind of bring in and say, hey, I mean, we have changed our plan. Now, I need my pickup trucks to be landing out there. And I also have to give the information about how the customers who are impacted, how are they informed. So, a lot more proactive actions needs to be taken in for ensuring that, one, the customer is not left in limbo as, hey, where is my shipment going to be? Second, what happens to the logistics which is halfway through? The communication has to go back to them to reroute themselves to an alternate route. So, that is where a truly generative enterprise comes in, and it will be able to, in real time, alter the actions that were planned and realign to ensure that the business is not disrupted out there. Now, how are organizations leveraging GenAI? While we spoke about an example, there are quite a few other aspects how generative AI is bringing value to the organizations. Now, in terms of the autonomous operations, be it, hey, I have the inventory management, my supply chain management aspect covered up. Now, I can place orders, I can generate the purchase orders, I can generate the contracts automatically. I don't have to keep waiting for someone to take an action to generate the generative element of generative AI is kind of brought into picture. Now, at the same time, the existing ecosystem of the employees can also be augmented by bringing in AI to aid them in their day-to-day tasks, be it in code generations or be it the customer service representatives who can basically leverage the chatbot and bring in more information for the customer in real time. Now, some of these aspects are enhancing the productivity of the existing team members. I think the organizations, there are reports which says that between 10 to 20% of the productivity improvement have been seen based on the leverage of this. A 50 to 60% efficiency in terms of the process automations has been taken place. Now, beyond this, the generative AI is also able to bring in newer aspects of hyperscaled personalization. Today, if I go to Amazon, based on my browsing history, based on my shopping, my orders, there is a lot more that I get as recommended products, which is more personalized in terms of what I can pick and choose. At a similar scale, the personalization is happening across industries. For example, a wealth management organization today is leveraging this information to generate, based on the market trends, based on the forecasts, what should be the investment strategy for a specific customer based on his nature, style of his risk assessment and other nuances. So, the customer advocate is now ready with the different options for a given customer in how he can be advising the customer to make his investment choices. Now, we all looked at how generative AI can bring in value to the business. I would like to call upon Rowan to talk about how the web methods and the IBM ecosystem are able to make that in reality.
Thanks very much, Uma. First of all, glad to be here. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to follow the moves of my colleague Sam earlier. Mine are even worse, so we share that in common to start. I think just to kind of start, first of all, we're coming up on almost the anniversary of IBM acquiring Web Methods. And I would say that as a former person from Web Methods, the collaboration also with people like Pragma has been exceptional. Met many new friends and colleagues that I didn't have a year ago, and we've come a long way. Some of those colleagues today will walk you through in great detail some of the magic innovations that we've come up in that very short period of time. And I look at the product set and I look at the capabilities that it can drive for our customers as second to none. So buckle up, it's going to get interesting through the day. But if we start off, integration should be a key enabler. We've just heard about all the wonderful benefits from Uma and Wade and all the possible things that we can deliver as part of that disclaimer. But is it a reality today? For many organizations, there is a constant battle. Change never goes anywhere with integration. We were just talking with the gentleman from LabCorp earlier, which was nothing stays the same for very long. No longer have we finished one project, then there's 10 others there. We live in a world where there are a lot of bad people, unfortunately. So cybersecurity threats are ever increasing. So that data needs to be very well secured but still accessible. We have economic challenges. We see that today. We saw it through the pandemic. With supply chains being disrupted, we now see that potentially again with tariffs. And regulatory requirements. For those that work in the financial services industry, what was okay 18 months ago with data running in the cloud is now not, and they need to bring it back on premise. And so there is this constant battle and shift inside our organizations of how do we deliver those services and the benefits that Uma talked about. And it's only going to get significantly worse because generative AI is going to allow us to generate new applications. And it's expected that it will be over 1 billion by 2028. So that rate of change is going to continually increase. So how do we address that today? And we're going to talk about those long-suffering integration engineers that work longer and longer hours. And I saw from Google that they expected the average employee now, if they're really committed, to do a minimum of 60 hours a week. That's not really very sustainable. So how are we going to start to look at changing that? Well, today, if you look at the integration world, we have one person or set of people, the integration specialists, that are tasked with going and integrating all these solutions. And they are very skilled, very valuable, and very rare in organizations today. The challenge is the integration benefit, if spread more broadly across the enterprise, is significant. So we end up with an unfulfilled integration set of requirements that are there. How many in the crowd have had products that they want to get to market quicker, but they can't because of an integration backlog? Anybody suffered from that problem? Yeah, we've got a couple over here. So how would we change that in an ideal world? Well, first of all, we would make that easy. So we don't just need to write code. We obviously got low code for developers that can then leverage the work of those integration specialists and artifacts that they've created, which we talked about at the beginning. But more importantly, and in lots of ways, we call that the citizen integrator. How do we enable them? Because if we're able to do that, There's 10 times more developers than integration specialists, and there's 100 more people that sit in the line of business today that could leverage generative AI to build and launch new applications. I'll give you a specific example of that. We have one of the customers from Web Methods. During the pandemic, they launched a location-based curbside pickup in less than 4 weeks, from beginning to end. So not the usual one where we drive into a certain kind of Home Depot type situation. That's actually not Home Depot in this instance. You put your pin, send your text, you then wait and wait and wait. These guys went a step further in 4 weeks and made it much more personalized. They track the movement through their app. When you're pulling into the car park, the parking lot, they're already coming out. That's how far they went with personalization, not having you waiting. But they delivered it in a short period of time by leveraging developers and the low code. Now we start to infuse generative AI, and we start to be able to deliver this to the business. So, as we move forward, I think the key thing for us as we launch our new hybrid integration platform, Web Methods hybrid integration platform, is how do we do that? So 2 things. What you're going to learn about later on today from my colleague Suraj is how we bring together the products from Web Methods and IBM seamlessly into one. How do we bring that to a control plane, so basically a single pane of glass that allows us to be able to control on-premise and cloud-based assets from across the different parts of the portfolio, infuse those with generative AI, and allow you to be able to start to take those benefits. That's what today will be about. Those breakout sessions will jump into that in detail. So, what are we going to bring you? We're going to bring you a unified approach, fast-track and modern AI efforts embedded in what you do in integration for the first time. Consolidated tools, where we start to take out the risk of vendor sprawl. We see many organizations, 1, 2, 3, 4 plus integration technologies, diluting it. We've actually created a set of silos of integration tools. Well, that's cost, inefficiency, and time to market all thrown out of the window by having those different things. So how do we reduce that sprawl? And how do we make that quicker? Because we want to get you to market faster. We want it, whether it's supply chain, whether it's getting your food to a location quicker, whether it's delivering that airline ticket that bit faster, whether it's going to get your home supplies much faster, etc. But we also need to do that in a way that gives us good observability. I'll get my right teeth in. Observability becomes king because the access for the rest of the generative AI, the data is controlled from with that integration. So you want access, you want to be able to observe it, secure it, and provide governance over the top. And that's what you'll learn more about today. So then finally, how do we look at this? A diverse modern integration portfolio, APIs and microservices, hybrid environment, real-time data flow, adding events so we can have event-driven architectures, and then low code, no code, and composable. Nothing particularly stunning in that, but there is. Inside the IBM tools, we have very basic and hard engineering capabilities that can be used by those integration specialists, that you don't want them to stop doing that. But what we must do is then enable developers and that line of business. So when you still maintain strong three-legged approach, three-legged stool, we address much more of the business in being able to drive and deliver integration. So what you see there is our vision of how we start to take that forward. The challenge is how do we get started? So with that, I think that the near horizon is we have to start building some cross-functional teams. And at that point, I wanted to bring Uma in to talk about how we actually turn the art of the possible into the art of the reality.
Thank you, Rowan. So we saw in terms of the various benefits and what should be the core capabilities a generative enterprise should have. But then where to get started is where the challenge most of our customers are questioning. Yes. Some of them have started their journey small. So we recommend that look out for the quick wins. What can I implement which can probably turn me a ROI on a quicker basis so that we know what we are doing is on the right journey. So start small, have a clear strategy and vision towards those smaller things, what we want to achieve. While the generative AI is quite dependent on data. So having that clear aspect around the data governance, data security, defining those required policies around the data is, the infrastructure of the data has to be quite strong, because most of your outcome is derived based on the existing data. So we strongly recommend to have a strong data governance and infrastructure out there. What next post that is where some of the aspects of the ethical considerations of AI has to be looked into, as how that is going to have an impact in terms of be it people or be it the process or the customers that needs to be addressed out. So having a strong ethical considerations, laying down the foundation principles, what needs to be followed in, follows the great standards out there. Now, the generative AI is also bringing in a lot more in terms of newer business opportunities. Now, that means that requires a much more closer collaboration between the business or the functional teams and then the IT teams. So, we need to start creating those pods of both the IT and business coming together, understanding what the customer insights are from the data that got generated out there, and then how should they leverage that in order to build in newer products and services out there. So, building those cross-functional teams is another key aspects in this journey. Now, what would this lead to over time is probably a fully automated autonomous systems that can do self-healing and complete the end-to-end business process with little to no intervention out there. So, that is where we see the future of how the generative enterprise is going to shape up the businesses for tomorrow.